Welcome to Chapter 1, Getting Started on Defense of my softball protocol. Today we'll go through everything that you need to know to get started on defense, from how to choose a glove, how to take care of a glove, how to get in a proper ready position, and ultimately some other considerations that you need to know for where to stand and get ready on the field. The first thing that we need to know in order to get started on defense is what glove to get. So the first consideration I would recommend for you is the size of the glove you choose. Here today, I have this 12-inch softball glove. I think this is a great size no matter if you play the infield or the outfield. This is because for infielders, they're generally looking to get an 11.5 to a 12-inch glove, whereas our outfielders are looking more for a 12-inch to a 12.5-inch glove. And so, as you probably noticed, the 12-inch glove was the commonality between our infielders and outfielders. But let's break that down a little bit. Why do our infielders want a smaller size glove? The answer is because in the infield, we're very concerned about having quick transfers. And so the advantage of having a smaller glove is that there's less room in the glove for us to look for the ball in, and so we're likely to have a quicker transfer. On the other hand, our outfielders are more likely to want a larger glove with a bigger surface area because they want more room to make a catch. They're less concerned about having a very, very fast transfer. So to recap, our infielders should be looking for an 11.5 to a 12-inch glove, and our outfielders should be looking for a 12 to 12.5-inch glove. The next thing that you should consider when picking out a glove is looking to make that glove fit your hand specifically. So there's a few things that your glove should come with to help customize your glove to your hand size. So the first things to look for are going to be straps for the thumb loops and then straps over here for the pinky loops. These are very important and something that we're going to want to tighten once we get our hand in the glove to make sure that our hand, our thumb, and our pinky are very secure in those slots. The more room those fingers have to move around in the glove, the less efficient that we're going to be at making a catch and at closing our glove. Likewise, the third adjustment that I really strongly suggest looking for is going to be some kind of adjustable wrist strap. So on this glove here, you can see that there's strings that I can tighten to make sure that wrist strap really fits my hand. Sometimes this may come in the form of a Velcro wrist strap. Whatever you find that works for you is something I'd recommend. I just think it can be hard to customize your glove if these adjustment pieces are not on the glove. Something else to look for that virtually every single glove is going to have are these strings through the finger slots. And you can see here, this is where it ends. This will become important as you use your glove because the force of the ball is going to cause the leather here to stretch, and so the finger slots will end up kind of farther apart. We really want these finger slots to be together, and so having this adjustment option will be important in the future. One last thing to consider when choosing a glove is going to be the shape of the web. So as you can see here, this web I have is pretty see-through and is generally considered flexible and something that might be favored in the infield. Ultimately, I don't think the webbing is going to be super important, especially for your first glove, but it's something that you can kind of play with and get a feel for. Other options besides this kind of open look is going to be more of a closed web. The only thing that I would suggest for you to consider is if you're a pitcher or not. I would not recommend this open face glove for a pitcher. That's because whenever you're trying to grip the ball, the batter and the other team can see your fingers and may have more opportunity to pick your pitches that way. So really for a pitcher, I might suggest having something that's more closed here in the web than open. However, that's more very high level, the picking pitches, but is a consideration that you may have if you're an older player. Now that we've picked out our glove and have the one that we want, let's discuss how best to take care of the glove. So I have my glove here as an example. If I were to set this glove down on the ground, which I'll use my hand for now, you can see that it's maintaining its shape and remaining open. This is in opposition to some gloves you may see that have this pancake shape and are closed like this whenever they're just flat or laying on the ground, compared to mine that likes to stay open. This can be very important because, for one, we only catch with the glove open. We can't catch a ball with our glove closed. So it's very important that we have a glove that stays open so that we're not exerting energy or trying to time the opening of our glove when we need to make a catch. This is an opportunity to introduce error into our fielding and is something that we can avoid at baseline if we maintain the shape of the glove. So in order to maintain the shape of our glove, we always want to store our glove with a ball in the pocket. So anytime you're not using your glove or put your glove in a bag, it absolutely should be with a ball in the pocket. To me, this is a non-negotiable for glove care and is something that makes a huge difference throughout the lifetime of the glove. So go ahead and give that a try if it's not something you're doing already, and let me know how it goes. Now that we have our glove and understand how to care for it, let's discuss how to actually hold the glove. So I'll start with an analogy using this stick here. If I were to break this stick in half, I'm not going to start with my fingers very close to the middle. Instead, I'm going to put my fingers on the very end of the stick in order to have the most leverage to break it in half. So the same can be said for our glove. So now if I hold the glove kind of like the stick, the thumb slot and the pinky slot here are the very ends that are going to give me the most leverage to close the glove, as opposed to me having more force in the middle trying to close the glove here. So it's just more efficient if we have more force on the end of the glove. So with that, usually people have one finger in each slot of the glove. This is kind of going against our analogy as we have the force kind of spread out across the entire glove here. Instead of that, I would recommend two different ways that you can try to hold your glove to optimize your efficiency on the catch. The first way is going to have 3 fingers in the pinky, 1 finger in the ring finger, and then of course our thumb in the thumb slot. This is what I call the 3-1-1 method. So it's going to look something like this. And the only difference with this is that my wrist might stick out a little bit more out of the bottom of the glove. But if this is something that's comfortable for you, I highly recommend it because this is the most efficient way to close our glove. If this is not comfortable for you and you have smaller hands, kind of like I do, we can try the 2-2-1 method, which is 2 fingers in the pinky slot, 2 in the ring finger slot, and 1 in the thumb slot. So that's going to look something like this, where I have 2 fingers and 1 here. This is also a very efficient way to catch the ball because we still have a good bit of force on the edges of the glove here. So go ahead and give one of those two a try and see what feels good to you and what works best for you. One other consideration for holding your glove is whether or not you want to put your pointer finger out here. People often do this to protect the pointer finger at the catch, because normally when I have 1 finger in each slot of the glove, my pointer finger is here, kind of right next to the pocket. So if I miscatch the ball a little bit in that pocket, it's going to be really painful on my finger. This is especially the case with our catchers that are catching some very hard pitches. So if you really want to, you can move the finger out of the slot. But if you try the 3-1-1 method or the 2-2-1 method, you may find that you don't even need to put your finger outside of the glove like this. So go ahead and give everything a try. Figure out what's most comfortable and fits your style the best. Let's discuss a proper ready position. The first thing that we need to do to get ready is to be balanced. First, we start with our feet shoulder width apart, and then there's 2 steps to getting balanced. The first is taking a bow and bending at the waist. The second is softening the knees. This puts us in a very athletic position to do whatever we need to do on the field. Notice how my chest is still up and facing the hitter, and also the weight is on the balls of my feet. Just so that we're all speaking the same language, when I refer to the balls of my feet, that's going to be around here on my foot. It's where the pads of my feet start, where the toes are kind of connecting to the meat of my foot. So let me turn to the side so you can see what the ready position and getting balanced looks like from that angle. So I start standing up straight with my feet shoulder width apart. Then I bend at the waist like I'm taking a bow and soften my knees. This is the most athletic ready position that we can be in. Now the next part of the ready position involves our upper half. So once we get set and get balanced, we have our hands out in front and our thumbs up. This is a great position because I'm ready for anything. I can go get a ground ball, I can catch a line drive, and I can also be ready for a pop-up. I'm also ready to go run after a ball or go cover a base or go run for backup in this position. So let me show you what that looks like from the side. I'm bent at the waist, soften the knees, and thumbs are out in front. Now let's discuss the ready position based on where you might be playing on the field, as it does differ slightly. The main tenets of the ready position are going to be the exact same for everybody on the field, in that everyone will be bending at the waist, softening at the knees, and have their thumbs and hands up and ready. The only difference is the height of the ready position. So our corners, our third baseman and our first baseman, have the least amount of reaction time and generally need to be the most ready for very hard hit balls. And they don't necessarily cover as much range or ground on the field as other positions, so they're going to be the closest to the ground like so. Our middle infielders cover a little bit more ground and have a little more reaction time, so they'll be up a little bit higher at this medium height. Finally, our outfielders have the most ground to cover and the most reaction time, so they're going to be virtually standing up straight, however still very athletic with bend in the knees. So I'll do that again from the side so you can see the difference. So as a corner, I want to be the lowest to the ground here. As a middle, I want to be at a middle height. And as an outfielder, I can be virtually standing straight up. However, still notice that there's bend in my knee. So go ahead and give that a try and let me know how it goes for you. Let's talk common mistakes with the ready position. The first common mistake I see is players not taking it seriously to get balanced. Oftentimes they'll rush the steps or do them out of order or just bend their knees and think that they're athletic. It's very important to take the time to do those two separate intentional movements of bending at the waist and softening the knees to make sure we're truly in a good athletic position from the start. The second common mistake that I see players make is they start in their ready position with the glove on the ground. This is a less optimal ready position because for one, this is very tiring to sit in a squat for our quads. This is not something that we want to be doing all game if we can help it. The second problem with this ready position is I'm assuming right now that the only play that I can make here is a ground ball. This is a bad assumption because for one, we rarely, if ever, want to catch the ball in the same position that we start in. We always want to be taking the opportunity to go charge a ball or take an angle to go stop a ball. From here, it's very difficult for me to charge the ball or be quick to go catch a ball because the first thing I have to do is stand up to where we could already be in our ready position. Also, with my glove on the ground, I'm not very prepared to be catching a line drive or a pop fly as I would be if I was in a more neutral position. The third common mistake that I see with the ready position is players holding the glove. This is not optimal either because we don't catch the ball holding the glove. So this is introducing an opportunity for error and mistiming with releasing the glove before we catch. If we're here with our thumbs up, we don't have to take the time to release the glove. We're already here and able to go make a play. The second problem with holding the glove is that we don't run with our hands together. We would have to take time again to release the glove in order to go run for a ball or make a play. So eliminate this step to begin with and have our hands apart and thumbs up to be as efficient as possible in the ready position. Now that we have our glove and our ready position, we're ready to talk about where to stand when you actually go to play the game. So I'll start with our corners when they're getting ready to field the ball from your average hitter. Usually our corners are going to start by standing a step inside the baseline and stand pretty close to the first baseline if you're a first baseman, and the third baseline if you're a third baseman. Our middles need to cover a little bit more ground than our corners and are not as concerned about charging for a bunt. So our middles want to be playing a step behind the baseline, if not a couple steps. This is probably one of the biggest changes that you'll see as you progress through softball. When you're young, you can stand a little bit closer because the ball's not being hit as hard. But once you get into high school and college, you may play around with your stance and stand several steps behind the baseline or come a little bit closer. It just depends on what you're comfortable with. For me personally, when I was young and playing shortstop, I stood about a step behind the baseline, and then in college I was playing just a couple steps behind the baseline. The biggest difference between a shortstop and second baseman and their ready position or location on the field is that a shortstop has a farther throw to first than the second baseman, so oftentimes you may see the second baseman playing as far back as the edge of the grass in the infield. Again, it's just kind of up to you and what you're comfortable with and find to be most efficient for fielding. And finally, for our outfielders, where to stand when you're just starting out. You need to think about how deep you are in the outfield and what kind of hitter you're facing. So if you're facing a hitter that can hit the ball far, I'd recommend standing deeper in the outfield. If you are a player that has a really good drop step and can get to a lot of balls behind you, you might be able to play a little bit closer. However, I think a good starting point is kind of somewhere in the middle of the outfield to maybe 2/3 of the way between the fence and the infield, meaning 2/3 of the way closer to the fence. Now we can move on to discussing special considerations for where you need to stand on the field. The first thing that I'll go over is where to stand when you have a slapper, and also very similar to that is where you stand when you're kind of pinching in the field to make a play at home. So usually this is when you have bases loaded and less than 2 outs, or a runner on third and less than 2 outs. So again, we'll start with our corners. Our corners here are going to play not one, but a few steps inside the baseline closer to the hitter. This is because we want to be a lot faster to get the ball to home for a play if we're trying to get a runner out at home. And for a slapper, we know that their goal is to get the ball in play, whether it be a hard, high slap or a soft slap or a bunt. And in all of these cases, we really need to charge the ball. So starting closer to the hitter in the case of a slapper is going to be advantageous to counteract what kind of offense they're trying to produce. In a similar regard, let's think about our shortstop and our second baseman in the event of bases loaded. Here, our shortstop and second baseman are going to move in and play inside the baseline so that they can get the ball home quickly. For a slapper, this is going to be very similar, but I would suggest the shortstop move even a little bit closer to the third baseman and more into that 5-6 hole. That's what we call the gap between the third baseman and shortstop. This is because we know that a slapper is fast and is trying to basically put the ball as far away from first base as possible. So we want to be in the position that the ball is most likely to end up in the field. For the second baseman on a slapper, they're going to be very similar and may be cheating just a step or two closer to first base. This is because in the event of a bunt, they need to be able to go and cover first base quickly. Finally, let's get to the outfielders. When outfielders are trying to cover the outfield for anytime there's a play that's going to be at home, or we anticipate them needing to throw the ball home, all the outfielders are going to take several steps in closer to the infield. There is a slight difference with the outfielders whenever we're just making a play at home versus when there's a slapper. So again, slappers are generally trying to hit the ball more to the left side of the field where our shortstop, third baseman, and left fielders are, and are not usually trying to hit the ball very hard because they're fast and just want to get to first base as quick as possible. And so in that instance, not only are the outfielders going to move in a lot closer to the infield, they're also likely to shift towards the left several steps. So you may see your left fielder shift a lot closer to the third base line than usual. Same with the center fielder. And then usually the right fielder may shift pretty far over closer to second base. because a slapper generally is not trying to pull the ball down the first base line. This next consideration of where to start on the field is going to specifically apply to our middle infielders. So usually our middle infielders are going to be the only ones that are going to cover a steal, specifically a steal at second base. In this case, oftentimes the shortstop is the one mainly responsible for covering the steal. The shortstop will pinch the middle. What pinching the middle means is the shortstop will move a couple steps, just 1 to 3 steps, closer to second base than they normally play, to give themselves extra steps closer to the base to get there in time to cover the steal. Sometimes when you get to more advanced levels of the game, or depending on how your coach wants you to cover the steal, the second baseman may cover the base on the steal, and so likewise, the second baseman would be pinching the middle or starting 1 to 3 steps closer to second base than they normally would. So go ahead and give that a try the next time you need to cover a steal. Similar to covering a steal, one other time our middle infielders may pinch middle would be at a time that we anticipate the opportunity to turn a double play. So this is really only going to happen when we have a runner on first and we usually have maybe a slower runner or a power hitter at the plate that's going to hit us a hard ground ball that we can turn into a double play. In this situation, again, the middle infielders will pinch the middle and play a little bit closer to second base to give themselves a better opportunity to get to second base and turn that double play. Next, let's cover an advanced topic that's related to our ready position. It's called shifting with the pitch. Shifting with the pitch is something that you may do if you know what pitch your pitcher is going to throw. This is important because certain pitches are more likely to produce certain results on the field. For example, if your pitcher is going to throw a hard inside pitch to a right-handed batter, you know that that ball is more likely to go to the left side of the field than the right, and so players on the field may be more likely to take a step towards the left side. And I know this is kind of contradictory, but that would be towards their one step to their own right. In contrast, if the pitcher is going to throw a hard outside pitch to a right-handed batter, that ball is more likely to go to the right side of the field. And so everyone on the field may shift one step to their left or towards the right side of the field. So that's something to consider if you know what pitches are coming and whether or not you want to try and shift with the pitch to get yourself in a more opportune position to field a ball and make a play. So once you decide whether or not you want to shift with the pitch, it's important to know how to do this so that you don't tip off the hitter or the other team to what pitch is about to come. So for example, if I'm in my ready position here and I know that I need to shift to my left, and I just take a couple steps like this well before the pitch, the batter and the other team are going to know kind of where that pitch is coming and where the ball's expected to go. So that's one way that the opposing team can potentially pick pitches or have an idea of what's coming at them instead of just having to react to anything. So in order to combat this, when we're getting ready, usually once I'm in my ready position and the ball's being thrown, I take 2 steps to get set. These are what we call creep steps. And this is how I shift with the pitch in order to not give away the location to the batter prematurely. So this is something that occurs as the pitcher is winding up. I'm taking these creep steps. So if I need to creep to my left, I'm going to take a creep step like this. This is happening at the same time the batter has to watch the pitches, so this makes it a lot more difficult for the batter to pick up on where the ball is coming, as opposed to me doing something like this way earlier on before the pitcher even pitches. So that's how I would recommend trying to shift with a pitch, is to use your creep steps of the ready position to shift in one direction or the other. That brings me to my final advanced topic regarding the ready position, and that is to hop or not to hop. So for those of you that have not heard of this, the hop is, instead of the creep steps, some players will get in their ready position and hop to get ready. The idea behind the hop step is that once you land, right as you land, you're in a really good position to make your next move or react to the ball. However, the hop step is something that's very advanced and requires great timing and is not something I would recommend for the general player. But I'm gonna start and go through how you would properly do a hop step. So to do this, you would get in your ready position, and the key of the hop step is that you take a very small hop, like so, just to get your feet barely off the ground. This is almost like a split step for a tennis player before they're getting ready to return a serve. But the idea and the most important part of the hop step is that I'm hopping and timing my landing to be right as the batter is about to hit the ball, because otherwise I might as well just be standing here in my ready position. If I land too early, there was no point in the hop step. But more likely, the biggest mistake I see with the hop step is players are late on their landing. And so their feet are still in the air after the ball's hit. This is a big red flag to me because that is a lot of time that the fielder is giving up waiting for their feet to land in order to react to where the ball is. So if you're going to do the hop step, make sure you time it right and make sure you use a small jump to time it right. Because that's another mistake I see a lot, is players think the hop needs to be really big. That gives us the most opportunity for error and to be late to the ground and have a delayed reaction. If you want to hop, make sure you take a very small hop and you're very precise with your timing. However, I did not use the hop, I used the creep step, and I think this is not only much easier to control, but also less error prone. But give those a try and see what works for you. Just remember, our goal in fielding is not to look flashy, but to be as efficient as possible to make every play that we possibly can. Thank you for watching Chapter 1 of my softball protocol. Let me know what questions I can answer for you, and stay tuned for Chapter 2 where I'll review the basics of throwing.